There's a lot of play that can happen between different stakeholders, and ultimately, I think we're all rooting for creation of value for students, which at the end, is the most satisfying factor. So even if you're not a B2C in this sector, somehow you will see the success of students, the objectives. You will have to grind, you will have to do a lot. There's no formula for like quick buck. For me, what really has worked in every organization is working with the right mentor, like the right people on the top. If you have the right people on the top who care for you, who are themselves experts or willing to invest, really works. You can get into the best of organization, but if you don't get support, you don't get the vision.
Morning, and it's a morning on Saturday, so it's really early morning. But when you meet this guest and you see him premium, proper prim, well dressed, then you feel that okay, you need to match that up. So for a change, early morning for me on a Saturday, but I'm super excited. So hi, I'm Saurabh, founder and CEO of University Living. We are a global student housing managed marketplace, and the guest today is very special. In fact, when we met, we realized that there are lots of common likes, dislikes, passion, interests we share. Over a period of time, we realized, and we met during pandemic over a virtual call, and I loved his salt and pepper look, and very classy guy, and speaking so well about international education, about everything, so we'll discover about him. So it's none other, it's Sagar Bahadur, more of a friend, and then an industry expert and a associate for us. So Sagar, rather than me introducing you, because there are so many feathers in your hat, why don't you tell about yourself?
Okay. Firstly, thank you for the invitation. I think we've been working for many years, and it's the first time that we'll be sitting as formal as this, having a conversation. So I think for me, it's been 15 years in the space of international higher ed. And I think in this 15 years, I've been very fortunate to be part of multiple portfolios, from international university setup to Indian university setups, agency business, and now a business which facilitates international education in India and outside of India. So I think that particular diverse, those particular diverse roles have really given the kind of, I think, inputs, experiences, learnings which really help us when we meet companies like you and other friends in the sector to understand mid-term, short-term, long-term kind of objectives. And I think that's where I enjoy the space a lot, that you can really connect the dots. There's a lot of collaboration. There's a lot of play that can happen between different stakeholders. And ultimately, I think we're all rooting for creation of value for students, which at the end, is the most satisfying factor.
Absolutely.
So even if you're not a B2C in this sector, somehow you will see the success of students, the objectives. So I think I enjoy the role. It's been 15 years of making new friends, traveling across countries, learning new cultures. And I think I, as an individual, will always look forward to what's next in our sector. So, and which I see, at University Living, like the kind of innovation you guys keep doing. So, so very happy to be here to have a chat. And I think it's not just one side. I'll be getting to know, more about you guys as well. Thank you.
Great. So generally, I keep things very casual and very spontaneous, So I'll follow my way of interacting,
Sure.
but
Sure.
please feel free, whatever you are comfortable with.
Sure.
And I, I'm not a trained podcaster. I'm not a good orator, but
Neutral,
yes, my thing is very clear.
Yeah.
If I get to learn, all years,
Yeah.
so I would love you to talk whatever you want to.
Certainly.
Right, and that's what the theme of this living pod. So when I came up with this idea about let's do a podcast, so my team came up with this idea of let's do a podcast. So I was like, what podcast? So they came up with this name, Living Pod. I'm like, why living? It's very niche. They're like, see, end of the day, it's about living, right? in this industry, it's all about living, learning, and achieving.
Yeah.
And this is what I was telling you about.
Yes. Yes.
Live, learn, achieve, stay happy, right?
Yes.
And anything to make student happy, because end of the day, if students happy, we are happy,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
whether it's B2C, B2B, like we started with B2C, we are now B2B, B2C, B2I, right?
Yeah.
And these are jargons which we are talking. So if I get a chance, why don't you tell me what is B2C for you? What is B2B? Why don't you tell me about your model, about Acumen,
Sure.
market entry, because these are jargons which I am able to decipher after 7-8 years, right?
Okay. Yeah.
After being in the industry in 13 years, after 7-8 years, I realized, okay, this is market entry, this is B2C, B2B, B2I,
Yeah.
but there are so many audiences, so many new ICR which have joined different market entries. So for them and for me personally, why don't you decipher the whole ecosystem? They are education partners, they are accommodation partners, they are market entries, then there are so many research companies in this space. So with that vast ocean of knowledge, as your name also suggests, Sagar, why don't we go deep into that Sagar and ocean and learn more about international education?
Certainly. So I think I'll start with the fact that I prefer to call it an ecosystem where all the stakeholders, which would revolve around a student's journey in education, are involved. They're somehow connected, delivering, some kind of value and success. For Acumen, so we are part of the Sanam Esport Group, which started 16 years back by Adrian Mutton and Kapil Dua, the co-founder at that point. And I think the one of the problem statements that was picked up by the group was India was, one of the major markets and a major region for universities. But every time to develop India, there was a lot of travel required, expense required, and maybe the lack of local expertise. And that's where I think the idea was pioneered by the group, that why can't we have trained professionals, individuals who can represent the university in India. That started with the very prestigious universities of the UK, where we had university hiring staff through us, and then these members represented and enabled the universities to derive value, and of course have a local presence in some way or form. I think that over the last 16 years, Saurabh, has really transformed. We are one of the companies who have moved beyond the service payroll kind of model. And what we have started believing is that we play a very important part in the strategy of universities when they're looking at the global scenarios. We are not limited to India. So when we talk about regions, we are talking about the whole of South Asia, Southeast Asia, US, Africa, Latin America. And what we are telling universities is that we are a team of experts, and then we can give you in-country representation. We can help you in your admission processes, conversions, but at the same time, we can also help you in research. We can help you in understanding the markets better, and we can help you deliver what you define success as. So if success for you is generating student enrollments, that's one of the things we can do through our in-country reps, which are ICRs. We can create school feeder networks. We can help you connect with universities in India or other parts of the world. We can also help you work with the government on policy. We can help you lead research projects and grants. So I think the definition of success for universities have really diversified, and that's where we come into play, with our the team of experts that we have in every country. And ultimately, we still have been very clear on our model as a B2B. And for us, universities as one of the stakeholders, we have increasingly started working with governments. So we're working with the government of Australia, government of UK, US, Canada, and again, from research projects to policy interventions. I think that's what we do. For us also, the definition of a partner can be schools, K-12 schools. In the month of November, we are hosting 10 international schools from Australia for them to see at India, look at India in a very different lens. can be edtechs who are looking at India and other markets. So I think that's what our ecosystem looks like. So it's a combination of governments, universities, schools, research organizations, and ultimately all of them are moving with the centerpiece of students, creating success for them.
So mention about all the ecosystem players. So for us, so when I started, I was very clear B2C, because I always resonate with, I'm a sales guy.
Yes.
So I started with students, and I believe I love to talk to students and learn so much. And then from there, we got into backward integration, from accommodation to now we help student with their, we launched this study abroad buddy international education. Now I was just showing you, we just launched our AI tools for, voice chatbot, for ICRs, for education partners. But where I'm coming from, and it's all about you on this in this episode. So you mentioned about all the stakeholders, but one stakeholder which I understand is probably we work very closely with education partners, which are education consultant, and you have a journey, wherein you also started a company, worked there for a couple of years, and you made them successful, and then we moved to this role. So where those education partners fit in your scheme of things? Because I believe there always some confusion that is Acumen into recruitment also? Is Acumen into, how are you competing with them or collaborating with them, or what is your relationship with them?
So I think, like I mentioned, for us, we still remain very clear on our objectives of not getting into a B2C kind of a model, which means we would work for our university partners to assist students through the in-country representation that we do. So in India alone, we'll have 130 in-country reps, the ICRs.
Go deeper into ICR. You mentioned about ICR.
Would be an in-country representative who basically would be on the payrolls of Acumen, representing, fully trained for a particular client of ours, which would be, let's say, any XYZ university. And then this representative will be delivering success and the KPIs that are set for that university partner for a region. Those can be defined as student recruitment, research, partnerships, K-12, agent management, student services like accommodation and other kind of services. And that's what we do. So we will basically manage the pool of these ICRs, make sure that they're able to deliver.
And these ICR collaborate and coordinate with education agents.
Yes. So the ICRs, I think a majority of them would be working with agents every day in, day out. They travel for fairs, they train them, they handle the student queries coming from the agencies. And I think for us, we are very clear that we would provide any support to the ICR to work with agents, or for the agents to work with the ICRs. So I think a lot of occasions we introduce agencies to our university partners, or vice versa, of how they can come together. We can also advise universities who are very new to agent models to tell them how successful. But again, what are the do's and don'ts? How do you navigate these waters?
Because I was about to say that there are 18,000 education partners, which I last heard in India.
Yes.
Globally, there must be 40-45,000. I'm not sure if the correct number, but India is 18,000.
Yeah.
Out of the 18,000, I guess there are 100-200 agents which have pan-India presence, or which are more popular.
Yes.
So how you navigate? Because I heard there are kind of partners in Punjab and Telangana, in Gujarat, even Delhi NCR, which are like, they are like, I don't even have the right name to describe them, fly by the night operators. Yes. So how you navigate that?
So I think one of the strengths what we have is, the first thing I did when I came back into this role with a different mandate at Acumen was we created 3 different verticals. One of them was agency management and partnerships. I think the strength which we really want to utilize are these foot soldiers, our 130 ICRs, if we only talk about India.
And what about others? So in India,
we'll have Southeast Asia, will have around 40 plus. In the US, we are still the largest with around 20 odd ICRs. And then you'll have a few in Dubai, Africa and Latin America through our partners. So I think one of the strengths which we are trying to really build on is that the ICRs have a lot of intelligence, because they're always going to an agent office. They know what's happening, what kind of applications, who are doing well, who are not doing well, how is the office, how the staff, are they trained. And I think that's one thing that we keep absorbing as a company. And that information nobody can replicate because it's not a website, it's not a brochure.
And I believe you were also an ICR on a time.
I was, yes.
You know,
yes.
so it's like, you know, that's why I firmly believe that nothing go wasted. I believe you started you were with Amity for longest time.
I started as an ICR for a Singaporean institution, went to Amity, then...
I'm diverting a bit and then we'll come back to this piece. Why don't you say your journey, because I can now see lots of dots getting connected, and I believe lots of people must be thinking of how Sagar has become Director of India Acumen, you know, at this young age, you know, because I know, I mean, there are lots of people who love you and there are people who probably admire you or aspire you, right? So I'm trying to be politically correct. But so you studied in Singapore.
I studied in Singapore.
On you.
Okay, so I did my international business post-graduation in Singapore. I came back and as planned in my head and my parents' head, I started a construction company. So that's what my dad was into. So we started a small company called Igneous Granites. I did that for 2 years and I think there was a lot of rigor. And I'd seen that, so all my internships and all have been with my dad, you know, in what he did. And I think in 2 years I was knocking his door and telling him that I think I may lose the sheen that I would have got, you know, through Singapore. We're always on sites. It's a very different kind of an audience, kind of work. And fortunately, unfortunately, I mean, fortunately for now, so my alma mater, MDI Singapore, came up with a role that they wanted to expand in India. So that was like an ICR kind of a thing. And I think
when was this?
I was able to convince.
When was this?
Was 2009. So 2009 was the first time something like an ICR concept came to me. Very new, the sector was unknown, but I was able to convince my dad that let me do it for a couple of years. I'll be back. So you know, you handle stuff. I'll be back.
And were you married then?
I wasn't. No. I was quite young. And then that journey started, and in a couple of years, I was able to connect with the Amity group. Who were at that point aspiring to establish something in Singapore.
Right.
That's where the connection happened, and I transferred, you know, my role into an Indian education setup. One of the best, one of the biggest, most enterprising, and the fortune.
So you were part of that Amity mafia, if I say that.
Yeah,
because I have known so many friends and people in the industry who have been raised and nurtured in Amity.
Oh yes.
And then they have spread in the
I think
flag. So.
I think the training, the vision itself was quite refreshing. And I think at that age to be working with founders with that kind of vision was, I think, an eye-opener. So that journey, I think that trajectory was important.
That was a double MBA.
Yeah, I mean, I think we worked for like 15 hours a day kind of a thing, and very inspired by how the leadership worked as well. 8 years there, and the mandate was to open Amity campuses outside of India. So in 8 years, Amity had 16 campuses in the form of schools, institutions, universities. I think a mix of greenfield projects, acquisitions.
So your construction, experience helped there also?
No, I think it was what I learned, you know, there with my boss, the founder, the chancellor. And I think we learned how geographies have to be picked up, how strategies, and we were thinking, I think, 30 years ahead. And I think that was a great learning. Like suddenly from micros, you went to macros. But once the campus was set up, you go into micros as well.
That's the beauty about working with founders, you know.
Certainly.
I always tell, and not trying to boost, but if you get a chance to work with founders,
100%.
even if it's a small company,
100%.
just jump on it. Even if you're not getting paid, just jump on it.
I tell this to a lot of people as well.
I am not that fortunate to get that. You know, but I believe my team and people, not that I'm the great founder, but visionary, yes.
No, I'm sure.
But if I get a chance to, let's say, leave University Living, you know, I would not leave it for anything, but let's say if I got a chance to get a internship with probably Mr. Murthy, you know, Mr. Ajay Chaudhary, you know, I will definitely take a year or two sabbatical and come back. But over to you, back to you.
Yeah, that's more than an MBA thing. So I think, so those 8 years were transformational. I think we would have traveled the world. We would have seen what can be done, cannot be done. Successes, failures, but that really refined us. And I think as soon as I was coming out of Amity, nothing, like everything was, could be done. And that's what I used to tell, that I don't think anything is difficult. Like we had projects like in 3 months open a campus in Africa.
Whoa.
And that was the kind of journey we had. And then...
Is it because of the Amity scale? Is it because of the resources and connects?
I think that was one, but then I think the way they inspire, I think all of us were ready to work 15, 20 hours a day. We were willing to really keep work as our priority. But also, I think the respect they get even outside of India is not. Then it becomes easier because the acceptability by policymakers is also there. So, as an example, in Mauritius, we became the first private degree awarding body. We were able to acquire institutions in the US, which at that time was unheard of, that an Indian is coming and running a university in the US. So I think that was great. And after 8 years, I think learned the art of how do you manage education as a business from India to outside. And that's where a very interesting opportunity came, as the University of Queensland wanting to have investments and kind of inroads in India and a more strategic role.
And what year was this?
This was 2018 end. And I started thinking that, okay, let's try this particular, gig as well. I mean, the charm of a top 50 university, how they function, the pedigree of people. And Australia was a market that I never looked into. So Amity, in my role in Amity, we never looked into Australia, our department. So it was something that let's prove ourselves again. Let's, try to come out of the comfort zone. And that happened early 2019 for 3 years. That was, I think, a dream project. And that was through Acumen then. So that's where I got in touch with Acumen, had the team based out of Acumen, and had 3 wonderful years with one of the best teams. One of the things we experimented for UQ was that the whole team that we set up, around 7 of us, none of us had an Australia background. So we came in no bias. We came in as very new people for the Australian sector.
The curiosity to learn was there.
Yes, and we picked up, I think, the right ingredients for the team. We became also one of the first teams in the history of UQ. So they had something called the annual UQ Awards, as the first team to be awarded the UQ Excellence Awards. Otherwise, they generally go to scientists and other kind of teams on campus.
Wow.
And even with this structure where we were still part of Acumen, supporting University of Queensland, we became, we were commended for the kind of work impact that happened. So I think it was very fulfilling for 3 years. And it was such a journey that my director international there, Alison, and I thought that we'll be able to do this privately as well. If there's success in a structure, why don't we use this to go to other universities and maybe develop this into a model, is where the idea of GradStar started. So we started this in 2021.
This was post-pandemic.
This is post-pandemic.
So you were aware of like it will not be easy and challenging.
100%.
I guess one thing which I realized, that you crave for challenges.
Oh yeah. I think I get very suffocated when the comfort zone comes in. And that's one thing that I keep telling myself, that I just want to be away from that comfort zone. As soon as I see it coming, I want a new challenge.
How you define? Because say comfort zone, you get to know when you see the rear mirror. Oh, that was comfortable days.
I think one of the things that has been very successful is that you build the right team and you help them grow. They grow, the business grows, the team grows. And I think the day you feel they've grown enough to do what you can do, and then there's a ceiling of what more can that organization or the team do, I think I see that as a comfort zone, that I can do it, my team can do it. There's not much scope then to innovate, and that's where I would seek I think challenges. Not easy, because then you have to still prove yourself all over again, so you start something. And fortunately for me, it's always been a different kind of a segment within the ecosystem. So you learn as an agent, you learn in the Indian education setup, you learn with the Australian setup. Now Acumen is very different. So I think that's really something that drives me, of how do you prove yourself again, how do you create again better teams, high performing teams. And once you create those kind of teams, you can grow. Fortunately at Acumen, there's so much diversity, regional as well as scope. I think in 1 year plus, I still enjoy every day with the new challenges, the new geographies, the new problem statements, but also how education is evolving. It's so beautiful at this point, of how you can just partner with so many people and create something new. So yeah.
So
far, so good.
15 years.
Yes.
2 years in MDI
2 years there.
as an ICR,
Yes.
international ICR.
Yes.
Then Amity 8 years.
Yes.
Learn Indian international education, brownfield, greenfield projects.
Yes.
Traveled.
Yes.
Got nurtured and trained from best of the leaders.
Yes.
Moved to UQ. Have
Yes.
seen one corner of the world.
Yes.
Deep inside.
Yes.
Painted India in purple. We talk about
Yes.
purple. Love for purple, right? And then you got into enterprising mode. I mean, you already been enterprising, but you took a more risk and solo.
Yes.
When okay, let's see a consulting business also, and then back to Acumen.
Yes.
So 15 years of back to circle.
Back to second. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I can see one thing, you have been very close to ICR because you have been one.
Yes.
Then you have been one from a different angle wherein
Yes.
you are a leader of ICR group,
Yes.
right? And now, I mean, you're director of Acumen, which is, I guess, pioneer of this model in India and global, right? So when you were at UQ, or probably when you were at MDI as a ICR,
Yes.
then you were at UQ as a leader of ICR, and now
Yes.
at Acumen, which is probably a leadership management role.
Yeah.
What have you think which you experienced
Yeah.
when you were at the receiving end?
Yeah.
And probably, if I can say, if you are at the giving end, or probably you can change your decision, your thought can change lots of good and
yeah.
things and bad things, right?
Certainly.
So what are those learnings for you?
I think Singapore times were very new. I think the concept of ICR was still, I think, very fresh. There were various other kind of models.
But why we need ICR from universities? Why why don't they come directly and establish their establishment?
See, it takes a lot of procedure. It depends on the risk appetite. It depends on what kind of investments they're looking at. The taxation laws. I mean, you have to be very compliant. And at times, the universities will just see certain regions where they're looking at mid-term gains, short-term gains, and they may not have a much larger vision at times. Recruitment is one aspect.
And it's also the lean way to come.
It's a
Test the
lean way.
waters and then probably
test waters.
build or expand.
It's the thing like how Deakin would have come in. They came in and now you see that they're having a campus. Southampton has announced. So I think you always would test the market. You see what's happening. But I think the easiest way is to have somebody represent you. And that's where this model comes in with multiple players.
And just for disclaimer and transparency, so we have a couple of people we have hired in Southeast Asia, in Malaysia through Acumen. So I mean, I'm not just vouching them because he's a friend, but I'm also his client, right? So it's a very beautiful relationship wherein at time I become client, at time we become friends, and at time he pushed back that because he has responsibilities and role which he need to ensure that he's doing the right thing for the overall ecosystem.
Yes.
So back to ICR learning.
So I think Singapore was very in a bubble kind of a thing. My first experience,
New
we were
thing.
just trying to succeed in that small bubble of how we do for the organization.
They were targets.
There were targets, there were partnerships, there were numbers, day in, day out of travel.
Are you a sales guy?
I think I was a sales guy. I still am. So a large part of me will still be very salesy.
One thing which I believe in India, and I'm after this thought that why sales has been looked down. I'm sorry, I'm digressing a bit, but we all are salespeople, no?
Yeah.
Like right now also you are bringing the best part of you.
Yeah.
We'll also
Of
try
course,
to get your vulnerable parts. Let's see.
Yes.
But why we should not look down on sales, because eventually I was reading and I was watching something that why Indians suck in dating business, because or dating, right? Because we never, if someone is boasting themselves, they are telling good thing about themselves, they feel arrogant, and due to which generally, at least I was also the same. I never had girlfriends or lots of girlfriends, and I realized why it happened, because it's very important, to interact, and those relationships, those interactions form your personality, right?
Yes.
So again, I'm digressing a bit, but through this medium, I really want to convey few and really want to bust few myths. And one of the myths is sales is one of the best role one can get access to, because you travel, you get to learn so much, and it's natural.
100%.
And we are doing every time.
Yep.
It's just that someone is aggressive, someone is passive, but we are selling.
I think, I feel every department has a bit of sales in it. HR will have their presentations,
Right.
finance will give their balance sheet, which in a best way
Yeah,
they'll be presenting. I think, and I think that's the building block for a lot of jobs people will get into. I have seen especially the younger generation coming out that who would directly want to go to marketing, which I think has to be told that
It doesn't happen and
doesn't
will not happen.
doesn't
Like,
happen. Yeah.
I have the interaction whenever I do. I don't say interview. Whenever I have an interaction to hire someone, I always ask, and especially marketing role.
Yeah.
Is sales part of marketing or marketing part of sales?
Yeah, I know.
You tell.
I feel sales is like where ultimately everything will go. So you're marketing to achieve sales. All these support functions come in for that basic unit that you need to get in the company. So for me, I think sales is that foundational expertise that everyone needs to have.
So coming back to, you're back to your ICR role, and then from ICR now you are back to the circle wherein like you've been as a receiving end. Now probably tables have turned.
Yeah.
So what are you changing or what are you doing differently? Because I see in last few years or probably few months, there are lots of new changes I heard. But I because I have lots of friends in this industry, and we meet, we play, we eat, right?
Yes.
And whether it's a gossip or it's industry discussions, right? Or insights, right?
Yes.
So why don't we hear from the horse mouth?
So I think I had the privilege of working at Acumen as an ICR for 3 years. An ICR where I could have a team. So multiple layers of how an ICR can be managed. And in those 3 years, we had various, it was a roller coaster ride of how do you work with a partner, how do you work with
What was
Acumen.
not right, if you can say?
See, the fact that you're basically, there are two organizations that you're somehow connected to in an ICR model. You're also connected to an organization like Acumen, but you're also committed for the goals of the university. And I think that itself becomes at times, how do you manage? What are you supposed to do? And then, there are different checks and balances, processes of what you get into. I think in 3 years, whatever feedback I would have had, positive or negative, really helped carve out the new role. So I remember when we were signing or talking about this new role, I did mention to the management that I hope you understand that I come with a lot of baggage of what went right, what went wrong. Where are the opportunity areas? And when I saw the mandate that you can do that in this role, you can really shift things. So you can really change that kind of landscape. And you can be an enabler for the ICR to succeed. I think that's really attracted me for the role. I think from the first month, what we did was we got the ICRs back in the camp in a way that why don't you decide our policies? We are serving you. We are there as a company to help you succeed, get the KPIs of our partners. Why don't you tell us what your leave policy should be, what your travel policy should be? How do we appraise you? Because at times we don't know what you do, because there's so much of travel and all. Why don't you tell us what kind of social engagements you like? Because you again travel. Would you like to come to an office or not? What kind of an office would you like to come to? Who are the kind of managers you would like to work with? Because maybe you want industry experts to come and just be your partners. I think we started getting them to tell us what need to be done. And that really, I think, and I would have loved the same when I would have been an ICR of am I heard, but not just heard, but my
Actions.
Where were the actions? And I think that's where we changed everything. So a lot of our central team members are former ICRs. So my team, complete central team, will be former ICRs who would have spent 15, 20 years. So they really can be very empathetic towards that journey. So if an ICR is traveling for 20 days, we know how to deal with that stress, So I think a lot changed by just putting ourselves in their shoes, which was very natural for us. Any small thing to a big thing, we really understood what drives them, what keeps them motivated. And then we changed, I think, the full approach of these people reporting to us to how can we be your partners to support. So then suddenly there's not one ICR serving a partner. We are a group of 5-6 individuals with our experience to say, for this project, 5 of us will go this journey. And I think the partners really enjoyed the journey as well. They've seen the positive shifts. I think there's unprecedented kind of movement in the ICR community, not just in Acumen. I think what we have seen is a lot of recreational kind of stuff has come up, a lot of away days, and I think they've started coming together as a community now. They've started bonding well, and what is helping the ecosystem is when they connect, when they spend time, there are new ideas that come in. Suddenly you'll see a Canadian ICR working with an Australian ICR and a UK ICR, and they're
Sharing the
talking about
insights.
common problems. How do we solve it? So I think that really has helped by putting them in the center stage. That this is for you.
And lots of insights and intel will be sitting with different
yes.
destination ICRs
Yes.
and even the other ecosystem, because eventually it's the same ecosystem.
100%.
Right? You're going after the same student.
100%.
You're dealing with the same education partners.
100%.
It's also get to know, okay, the same education partner treat different people differently.
Yeah.
You know, as per their capacity. And it's like
Yes.
vice versa.
Yes.
Right? So great.
And
So you be, yeah.
Sorry, I just want to say, I think what we have also been able to show within Acumen and other, the sector is that there is growth. That
Yeah,
there
for
are
sure.
opportunities. You're handling one partner and suddenly you can handle multiple. So we have a lot of partner success directors who will handle like 10 accounts together. And that's really when you start working on strategic inputs, you suddenly get a larger portfolio. So I think there are a lot of our ICRs, we have recently seen a couple of them who have now transferred to UK. So they've grown. So there's a lot of lateral as well as horizontal kind of
Very nice.
moments.
So I guess you're running Acumen like a startup. I'll give you some example, and I'm just connecting. So let's say I have 50 people team allocated to Australia, right? And Australia segment, it went through their own challenges.
Yeah.
So rather than making them redundant, I moved them to UK or Canada, and their learnings to other teams, and this team like UK learnings to them.
Yeah.
Australia, it was so refreshing, and people are enjoying because we realize by blessing in disguise, those people have become renewed because they are enjoying. It's a new role, more challenging role. They're learning new. I always keep saying that people don't leave companies, they leave roles, and we all know they leave managers, but they also leave roles because today's generation and people are not they don't do monotonous work. Even if they are doing 6 months, 9 months nicely, if you communicate with them and tell them, okay, I want you to be part of this role for let's say 12 months, and these are numbers you do, and we move. Rather than people leaving, and if they shift, I always say that why people need to leave.
Yeah.
In a particular company, there are all the roles which they would like to look outside.
Yes.
It's a lack of communication. It's a lack of expectation. Also, a lack of expectation on one side. That let me talk in Hindi a bit. मैं दूँ नहीं मुझे मिल जाए. Both ways.
Yes.
So I believe you're bridging that communication gap, and I believe that's where I always say that you're the right person for this role always. And because you have gone through the journey, so you know what are the do's and don'ts, and you also know how management been thinking and how we were been thinking when we had that role. So
certainly.
I believe your full team must be very, very happy with the kind of Demoya and your mentorship. So you're talking about teams, inspiring leadership. So I would like to go double click on that. You mentioned teams, right? You mentioned inspiring leadership, and you've been blessed and fortunate to have lots of mentors in your life.
Yeah.
Why don't you touch upon those aspects?
So I think I'll address the mentors thing first. So I've always believed, I think from the start, which was I think an acquired kind of a concept, where I started looking up to people where when I got into the sector of how they're working and what's happening. So very fortunate to have the right kind of mentors at different stages. And I think mentors would also change. There are certain mentors who will teach you life skills, the general, principles in life, who may remain constant. But I think at work, there can be different mentors at different times. And I've been very fortunate that every organization or even in the sector, I've been able to get the right kind of people who not only, I think, demonstrate that kind of excellence, but also are very happy to invest. And again, I've tried my best to commit myself to live up to the expectations of these people. And I think in parallel, one of the concepts that really worked was having the right kind of idols. So one is a mentor who will keep guiding you, but there can also be idols, and I feel that really also worked very well because at some stage I would idolize somebody within the same kind of work profile to say that this is where I would like to be in the next 18 months, 24 months. And that really helps as a catalyst of how do you skill yourself, how do you start learning, exhibiting those skills. So I think it's been a combination of the mentors who would help you reach the stage that you set for yourself. The mentors telling us what's realistic, what can be done. But those stages are set by some kind of ideals that you'll have to say that in this sector, this is where I want to be. So that really worked.
You have 5 traits to be a good leader.
Oh, that's a tough
Your or
one.
anyone you want to talk about. What are
See, I
the
think,
5
yeah.
things when you look for your young breed to become a leader? What are those 5 things you look?
I think for me, if the first one will be hard work, I don't think there's any substitute to that. You will have to grind. You will have to do a lot. There's no formula for like quick buck. You can never do that. I mean,
Is it because you're middle class upbringing?
I think still, whatever we see as success stories, they've come from very humble
But
beginnings.
see, today's generation changed, right? See, we come from a background wherein our parents were at survivor mode,
I know.
right? But today's generation is privileged, and I mean, if tomorrow when your daughter will start her career, she will already have lots of access.
Oh yeah.
We have been probably she will say, why I need to do hard work?
Yeah.
I start with smart work.
I know. I mean, that's what I think we see while she's growing up, while we try to limit whatever access we can to whatever possibilities. But I think, yeah, I mean, at some point, yes, what we have seen with our parents really is how we got shaped. And that slowly will change with the access. And that's why our parents would have worked hard. We got some access. We'll work hard to give our next generation some access. And I think that just flows down. I think in nature, I mean, it's a principle of what we do for our, next generation.
So hard work then.
I think hard work was one. I think for me, what really has worked in every organization is working with the right mentor, like the right people on the top. If you have the right people on the top who care for you, who are themselves experts or willing to invest, really, works. You can get into the best of organization, but if you don't get support, you don't get the vision. Somewhere I feel even as a leader I will fail for my team if I don't have that kind of.
So you are saying you see the seekingness of that person to seek from the leader.
100%. So in any success, it's both top bottom. So you need to have the right top who has the vision, that kind of stability, but also and then the third point is the right team. I think for me, whatever success we see is all because of the team. Are they willing to lift you up? And then you're
Teamwork, you mean?
Teamwork,
Or you would say gelling the team?
No, I think it's the right team that you're able to assemble.
Structure, okay.
You're able to assemble the team who can work at the same pace, with the same passion, vision. And I think it's the first 18, 24 months where all of you really need to do that kind of push. And I think I've been very fortunate to have the right people both at the top and the ones who would support the groundwork. I think that really works. I think to be a good listener, being empathetic becomes, I think, very, very important because there's so much happening, and if you miss the pulse, you'll either lose. I mean, you'll lose the people, you'll lose the project, you'll lose everything.
Yeah.
I think that.
And when the people, in fact, every business is a people business.
Yes.
So okay, and I can vouch you're a good listener for sure.
No,
I mean, I'm not, but you're a great
I try
listener.
to. And I think one of the things is where I see is how good are you at troubleshooting, which I think becomes a subset. Like, are you able to demonstrate that you're able to solve a solution? Because I think that's really inspiring for teams to see, for businesses to see. So I spend a lot of time in just honing the skill of how do you break a problem into actionable problem statements, and then what can be possible solutions, and then you pick up the right people in the team to say, this problem you solve, this problem you can solve as a team.
Delegation.
Let's come. So I think that delegation, troubleshooting, everything then becomes very important.
So I'm digressing a bit, but I guess you will enjoy this. Let's do a rapid fire round
Okay.
on these things which you have talked about.
Sure.
And then I'll get to know whether you are faking it or making it up, or you are real, or you are just doing it for a camera.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And we only have 3 seconds to answer one question. Yeah?
Sure.
Are you a doer or talker?
I'll be a doer. I'll be better without the
You're
camera.
thinking.
No. I was just telling your team that I'm happy to be away from the camera doing.
You're a doer.
So talking is.
Tactical or strategic?
I'll be more strategic. Yeah.
Hard work or smart work?
Oh, hard work. Yeah.
Work or travel?
Work while travel as well.
Work, travel. I knew that answer. Food or sports?
Sports. Any day.
Cartier or Rolex?
Cartier. Yeah, Cartier for sure.
Great. Coming back to probably the last segment, and and let me pitch about So, what do you think? Why accommodation is so important, and how you see university living? And you don't need to talk good thing about us, but like we've been working, we are your client, you are a well-wisher. Anything which you want to convey to the ecosystem that why accommodation or post-admission services is important in the ecosystem, which I believe, I'll just say because my vested interest, but what are your take? Because this segment has not got enough education and people are not talking about it because yes, it's not a high margin game, it's a volume games, but it's a very important piece. So your take on this?
So I think while I was talking about the diverse hats I would have worn in this sector, the first hat I was wearing in the sector was as an international student. My first experience with even Mega, who works with you, with vouchers, I landed in Singapore. I went to my room, accommodation.
Yes.
And in half an hour, I was complaining that I do not want to stay here. And that was my first experience of a place. Like in 4 to 5 hours of reaching a dream destination where I want to study, my first day was spoiled. And then I looked into accommodation options with some friend and also not the best of how you would start that journey. I think that triggered the point that the journey starts with a lot of things. Students will look at courses, rankings, and testimonials and so. They'll miss the things that are really required to make you successful. I mean, how do you start? The first thing you will do after reaching is setting yourself up, keeping your stuff. And that's where I think accommodation becomes one of the first things that you notice, as soon as you've done with the airport checkouts and everything. I think that's the education that I feel, is very important. And what I've always liked about us talking and what we see doing with you guys is you've invested a lot of time in education. I mean, even this podcast as an example. But getting the university reps together, I mean, of course, I understand business would be business, which all of us would do. But educating the sector, one of the things that I picked up early on from you was how do we start telling these students early on? Like it's a decision that you start as soon as you're starting the journey of where do you want to go. And I think that really was very inspiring for us as an individual, as a team, that there are companies like University Living who are willing to invest in educating the audience. And the audience is for you, which is also very interesting, is not just B2C, which you mentioned. You're educating agents, you're educating ICRs, you're trying to get them as much as possible. And I think the way you guys do it is, again, it's not a sales kind of an approach, which is really, I think that message goes down very well. It doesn't look like a push, it doesn't look like, and I think that's exactly something that I've always enjoyed. One of the things that we were just discussing when I came in was a sample room, to be demonstrated for students, parents, or even partners. I think is, that kind of investment not many people would think. The second thing which I've enjoyed and is again an aspiration where, as a business, we would see is how to get everything in under one roof. So there's no bias for a particular property or for a particular location. I think that as a business thinking, like you mentioned, as a vision has been great. Not just as a vision, but also implementing that has been great to see of how you've been able to bring multiple brands within the fold. And then suddenly a student or a partner can see multiple options. And then you put the choice back on the student. Wherein earlier maybe somebody would be proposing one or two options. Suddenly now it's just a plethora of options that a student can have. Which I feel is the way forward for many of such businesses.
Right. I tell you why it's coming. If I take a minute, I went to NTU for exchange, right? And I won't blame that education agent. It was me who didn't ask whether I can go to LSC or Imperial to NTU. Not that NTU is not good; it's great. In fact, I learned so much in Nottingham. I still believe Nottingham the best city to party and to stay, right? But it wasn't them, no, it's us. No one told us. We didn't research, right? And we're like, okay, if that person is telling, that must be good. But that's what we keep saying, that a student, a parent, education partner, all the ecosystem should take an informed decision. And where the information coming?
Yes.
That's where the education needs to be bring
Yes,
in.
yes.
That's why we are investing things like UL research does.
Yes.
We are investing into content, tech.
Yeah.
Because we are not playing that 3-5 years of game, fundraise and vanish, right? It has to be 30 years game.
Yeah.
And when you're into housing, which is a need-based product, but it's not selling.
Yeah.
Because you can sell and then vanish. It's about experience.
Of course.
It's still we are not 100%. We every few days we get some cases wherein even if we have not sold it, but there's so much of expectation gap. Like students feel, I'm in UK, I'm paying £500. It's a matchbox. Yes, it's a matchbox, but you're in London.
Of course.
Right. So these things needs to be told, and this thing needs to be told. It's a journey.
Yeah.
It's been 13 years I've been doing it, and I'm very, very passionate because I've gone through that. I imagine if I would have come back, all these things would have not happened. Right? So we want to ensure that one student, which is a life, we can change it or break it even after they get into the best university.
100%. And I think that comes back to the same thing which we talked about, the ecosystem concept, where I think service providers like accommodation providers are such important parts where right from the schooling, where people may not be even thinking, they're just bothered about rankings, eligibilities. That's where the education should start, of the expectation setting, and also that it's a major ingredient of your costs, of your experience, and of your journey, of what you're going to become. And I see more and more of that happening. But I think that's where the ecosystem is evolving as well. They're bringing banks, they're bringing all these kind of accommodation and other things, just for everyone to know that this is an important aspect of studying abroad.
And it helps everyone. If a student don't have finance,
yes,
they will not end up going abroad.
Yes.
And there are so many myths that you need to be rich to go abroad. No, at least I was not.
Yeah.
I was, I might be. I wasn't. You come from a middle class family, but you've been doing so well for yourself, because you are part of the ecosystem. That's what I'm keep saying every student. When you want to go abroad, don't see 3 years, 5 years, which destination, which country. Always focus on your thought process. Okay, you're going abroad. It is expensive, but there's the finances, right? There are scholarships, right? There are universities who give you scholarships, 50%, 100% scholarship. They are scholarship like University Living Scholarship. They are scholarship from Acumen, so many banks. So look for that. Have an informed decision. Do research. Go to education partner. Do your research. But talk to university. Talk to your alumni. Because if you take an informed decision, you can be successful like Sagar. International education and international student. ICR of MDI in Singapore representing India. Then move to University of Queensland. I really love that purple. Probably we talk about purple next time.
Sure.
Then moved to Acumen, representing one of the best universities. Started his own, did his gig for a couple of years, established that company, moved out, and now as a director of Acumen Sanam S4, which is one of the role many people who've been working in this industry been aspiring to in 15 years. It's not easy job, lots of hard work. I know how sincere and disciplined he is. Also, how impeccable or seeking he is to learn about anything, everything, So that learning attitude is very important. That long-term vision is very important. And when you're going abroad, don't see it as an immigration opportunity. See that education opportunity, immigration is a byproduct. Employment is a byproduct. Focus on skills. Even if you're not going to best universities, let's say best ranked universities, but you need to be ensured that you're going to that course which you're looking for. You're going to that destination which suit your personality. If you're not a cold, winter liking person, don't go to Canada. Go to Australia. But if you're looking for a course which is only in Canada, go to Canada, right? If you're looking for a mining role, go to Australia. So where I'm saying, just don't have a blanket statement that, okay, people going abroad will do very good, or people not going abroad, or people going abroad, they are struggling, they're not getting jobs. Jobs, these are careers.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You can build empire, you can build companies. I'm very passionate about the ecosystem because this is global mobility. Then you have travel, you have education, you have all the skills. You want to travel, you can do ICR role. You want to do research, you can do education admission role. You want to sell, there's always a counseling role. And it's not a hardcore selling, it's a consulting selling. So you are creating a impact and creating careers and life for people. So sorry, I get very passionate about when we talk about this sector, this ecosystem, because we are the byproduct of this ecosystem, and there are so many success stories. So thank you, Sagar.
Thank you.
You know, for my audience, for the next time, you know, it will be very tough for me to get someone as interesting, as knowledgeable like Sagar. But I'm sure, you know, there are so many people in the ecosystem which will match this standard. And please continue to, you know, follow this, spread this, you know, follow Sagar on his LinkedIn profile, Instagram profile. He is very, very good photographer. You know, he's very, very articulate. And you know, please keep following Living Pod. Keep spreading things about learn, live, achieve, and keep aspiring, learning, and keep growing. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good.
Thank you.